There it is. Okay. We are back, guys. Kent and I are here for another episode of, it's not really new member training. It's more just basics mastering. I mean, anyone who says they've mastered this contract is an idiot. I've read this thing 1,000 times. I know Kent's read it probably more than that. And if we find something new every time we look at it. So anyone who tells you they've figured it all out, don't listen to them very much, because anyone who's not learning is doing something wrong.
Hey guys, and before you watch this today, at some point in time, go out there and download. And I know this is the draft; it's an early one, but go download the new contract and have it sitting here with you. And as we're going through it, get you a highlighter. And when we say something, because we move pretty fast through this, as we say something, highlight it. If you have a question, put it in the chat. Say, hey, that doesn't really make sense to me. Help me understand that. I mean, the only way we're really all going to get good at this is if we talk about it as a group, right? I'm not going to say that I understand it all. Andrew may understand more than I do, but let's say this is if when we have a conversation about it, then we can dig deep and say, okay, that makes sense for us down the road, right?
And more than that is
big deal for you guys to participate.
Like I said, more than that, come to an agreement. Making sure that the Texas Real Estate Commission, though they do a fantastic job, sometimes they're as clear as mud, and we've got to do our own interpretation a lot of what does that mean, how does it work, what applies. Just a basic example. The mirror in the bathroom that's hung on by a nail. I mean, that created a 30-minute conversation in my office one time, because half the people were saying it's a bathroom mirror, it stays. The other half were saying it's not attached. And we came up with the answer of it's not attached. So obviously it doesn't stay any more than a Monet, a painting, or anything else that's there. But that doesn't change the fact that a buyer walking into a bathroom is going to lose their minds when there's no longer a mirror. So those are just the conversations that you have to have, and the mindset you need to have when you're walking through a listing or through a house and saying, all right, how are these things attached? Is it hung on a nail? Is it glued to the wall? What are we doing to make sure? And unfortunately, a lot of times, as they say, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. You learn these things. You learn what to look out for by being burned in the past. I've been burned. I've seen a lot of burning. Ken's seen a lot of burning. Don't make our mistakes and learn quicker than we did. I think it is the secret of the game. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the contract now, making sure you guys can see where we're at. We stopped in paragraph 6 because paragraph 6 is like 3 pages, so we did not get that far, and it gets a little muddled. So let's see what we got to do to switch it to. All right. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Where we are on this is paragraph 6E3. We've finished talking about the homeowners association, and guys, I cannot stress enough that membership in the property owners association, extremely important to understand what you're getting your clients into. This is a very easy way to bomb a transaction halfway through a deal. If they are not understanding that they're required to pay dues, what they can and cannot do, colors they can and cannot paint their home, if they can or can't put up Christmas lights, they can or cannot put a RV parking. Make sure you understand what is in there, because it's a huge important thing that we've got to make sure. Now we beat that together.
I would ask you to just briefly go back over section D where it says activities, and just give just a little brief update that says here's what I should write there.
Again, this is going to fall on your broker, because this is not just Kent's agents and my agents on this class. So at the end of the day, the answer is going to be what your broker says. Now, that being said, what you cannot put there is blanket statements. What you're looking for here is objections that would stop you from being able to do what you're trying to buy the house for. Assume you're in the process of getting you want to start a at-home daycare center. Well, you would put in there activity allowed to operate a daycare center in the home. And if you're going to find out later you're not allowed to do that, then you get to get out of the contract, because that's why you're buying the property. being able to park your semi truck that you're a truck driver on weekends. These are things that you're going to want to put in there. You know, residential use. If the house you're buying doesn't allow residential use, you're probably doing something wrong. So I see that written in there a lot. It's kind of a waste of writing. And when you're writing stuff, you're always in danger of breaking the law by practicing law. So don't write anything that you don't have to write. But if it's something that's serious, you definitely need to make sure it's there. And that's the number one thing is if there's a true thing that they're worried about, it needs to be in that objection. And that would be, I'm going to do something with this home when I buy it. If I'm not allowed to do it after I buy it, then I can't buy it. And that's what you're going to put there. Now, buyer must object to earlier of closing date or blank days after buyer receives the commitment, exception documents, and survey. Personally, I put between 5 and 7 days. I usually put 7 just because it's a number I like. What do you see a lot in that number, Kent?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That gives you a week to see what's going on and make sure that you catch it and make sure that you don't have to do it on if you put 1 or 2 days in there, what happens when that falls in. So that gives you time to really get the objection done. But what I really loved what you said a while ago was, be sure don't write anything in there that puts you in a position where you're practicing law.
Exactly.
And that's the number. Better to not write anything than to practice law.
The only time you should be writing anything in paragraph 6D is if there's a true thing that the buyer is worried about. We have truck drivers are a perfect example. When truck drivers are home, they've got to park their semi truck somewhere. So they usually will try to park it inside of the house, front of the property, something around there. Well, if there's a restricted covenant that does not allow them to park their car there, they're going to be pretty frustrated when they're off and when they're home and want to be with their families. So that is definitely a reason to put in there. Starting a home business is definitely a reason to put in there. Anything that you're worried about that we're buying this home, but we're buying this home for a specific purpose and we want to do something, making sure that it is allowed. But don't just write stuff to feel important, because every time you write anything, you are putting yourself in jeopardy of practicing law. So be very careful about that in all ways, because that is a serious thing. Now, remember, guys, the clock does not start on the objection period of the 7 days or whatever date you put in there until you receive the commitment, the exception documents, and the survey. So if you don't get the survey until the day before closing, 1, we've already learned that most likely owe you a new survey, but 2, your objections deadline has not started until you've received it. So as you're a listing agent, you need to make sure you are on point and get that to the buyer's agent as soon as humanly possible to make sure that clock starts and your seller is safe. Is that good, Ken, or did you want to go over more?
No, I love that. I mean, and that's the thing, I'll never forget the first one I ever did. It was a survey deal, and and I didn't realize I put the number in there, 5 days or whatever. It was an agent in my office. I had the survey sitting on my desk, and it was 5 days. And day 6, I was like, oh crap, I forgot to bring her to take that survey down there to her office. And I walked down there, handed it to her, and she said, "What's this?" I said, "It's a survey." She said, "Yeah, you're gonna have to buy me a new one." So that was a commissionectomy for Kent on his first listing, because he didn't follow the rules. If you put the rule in there, follow the freaking rule.
But it was a good lesson that you learned, and how many years ago was that, and you still remember it?
15 maybe, or maybe longer. Yeah.
You can be as mad as you want to be an agent.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've always got to remember we're all a team in this transaction.
Right.
But we have different jobs in the team. It's like my son is a receiver right now on his football team. And I tell him, I was like, you trash the quarterback every time he throws you a ball. He's going to stop throwing you a ball if it's not thrown perfectly to you. You got to work together as a team. But at the end of the day, everyone's got their own role they've got to play. And the other agent's job is to protect their clients as much as your job is to protect yours.
Yeah, so the other thing I think about that, and I think about it a lot, is that I know everybody's got different color signs. Everybody works under a different color brokerage. I get all that. Okay. But when we put a deal together, you and I are partners, buddy. We're in this together. We have one objective and one objective only. Let's get this thing closed. Let's say They don't all have to do backflips. As long as they all smile when they walk away, that's a good deal. Right?
Absolutely. And that's
we got to keep that in mind. It shouldn't be a battle. It should be something that we're all in this together on.
Yeah. I'd much rather everybody win than somebody lose, and there's a way for everybody to win, there's no reason for people to be, I don't want a buyer tainted over the transaction when they move into their new home. I don't want a seller frustrated when they're cashing their check. I want everybody excited and happy. And in what you get to later in the podcast, or whatever we call this, giving us referrals, and those referrals can come from the buyer, the seller. They don't have to be your client to refer you because they thought you did such a good job. Don't steal people's clients, but take care of people.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to go through the faster section, guys. As real estate professionals, as licensees in real estate, we are required at multiple times to give notices to our clients. The great thing about the Texas Real Estate Commission's contract that was prepared by the Lawyer Broker Committee is it handles the majority of those notices for us. So anytime you see the word notice on here, it is a required notice that you have to give your client that is being done on your behalf by this contract. So sometimes you sit there and go, why am I getting this? There's a lot of notices that are required to be done, that are being done through this. So we're going to go through these rather quickly because, they have to do this, but they don't. Paragraph 6E3 is talking about statutory tax districts. Property situated in a utility or other statutory created district, providing water, sewer, drainage, or flood control facilities and services. Chapter 49 of the Texas Water Code requires seller to deliver and buyer to sign the statutory notice relating to the tax rate, bonded indebtedness, or standby fee of the district prior to the final execution of the contract. It's telling you right there, this has to be done. So if you're in a controlled water district, a sewage district, a flood control district, and those are all over the place, you have to disclose that information to the incoming buyer per Chapter 49 of the Texas Water Code. So think about that, be aware of that. Tidewaters, again, not a huge issue.
So Andrew, let me stop you right there for a second.
Okay.
And the other thing is you need to understand what that is. Most of you that are just running around out there listening to sell real estate, you have no freaking clue what a statutory tax district is. Guys, learn. This is what makes you a professional, is when you know this. And the one that Andrew's about to go into in Tidewater, I learned such a valuable lesson here. You'll get these analytical people that read every stinking word in the contract, and he's like, Kent, why in Midlothian, Texas, are we talking about Tidewater? Because there ain't no Tidewater here. I'm just making it clear. I mean, there might be a creek somewhere we could maybe put in that category, but it's in the contract. The client read it, and I better be able to explain to him why it's there.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And, same with El Paso. We use the next paragraph as a joke in El Paso because we couldn't be farther from a Tidewater if we tried. But making sure you understand what it means and why, there's still a value in that. And the real answer is, so I get what you're saying, but this is a statewide form. And there are definitely parts of the state of Texas that are next to large lakes, large oceans, and all those type things. So we need to understand what the rules are and that it applies to everybody. Tidewaters, if the property abuts the tidal influenced water of the state, subsection 33.135 of the Texas National Resource Code requires a notice regarding coastal area property to be included in the contract. An addendum containing the notice promulgated by TREC or required by the parties must be used. So the nice thing is about these forms, guys, if you don't understand what they mean, they're going to tell you where to go to get the form. So they're telling you right now, there's a promulgated form by TREC to explain the Tidewater form. You need to go get it, and you need to fill it out and make sure your broker explains to you what that is and what it means. Annexation is definitely a thing that happens in El Paso. I guarantee it happens in Midlothian and all those areas, even though every time I turn around when I'm up in that area, I'm in a new city and I can never figure out what city I'm in.
Right.
Annexation is if you're in a county line outside of the city can expand its boundaries at any time and annex you. And you could be like, hey, I live in the county. And then tomorrow wake up and realize, oh my gosh, I live in the city now. I have to start paying city taxes and all the fun things that are accompanied with that. You need to understand if you're in an annexation plan of the city and warn the buyers of that situation, because there are people who want to live in the county because of the tax differences, of the less restrictions on what they can and cannot do, being able to have horses, being able to have chickens and goats and whatever they want to do and why, there's a reason they may or may not want to live in a city. So if you sell them a home right on the city line, and then a year later or 6 months later, 5 months later, whatever it is, it's annexed, they're not going to be happy about that. So what this is stating is that the property is located outside the limits of a municipality. Seller notifies buyer under subsection 5.001. Again, this is a notice that is required by the Texas Property Code. The seller is notifying the buyer. The property may now or later be included in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the municipality and may now or later be subject to annexation by the municipality. Each municipality maintains a map that depicts its boundaries in extraterritorial jurisdiction to determine if the property is located within a municipality's extraterritorial jurisdiction or is likely to be located within a municipality's extraterritorial jurisdiction. Some tongue twister. Contact all municipalities located in the general proximity of the property for further information. So this is huge, guys. Again, this is a notice that the seller has to give the buyer that is being done through this contract. And you need to make sure you understand and warn the buyer as well. If they say, listen, I want to live in the county, but they buy a house within 5 miles of the city limits, there's a good chance they're within that city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. And
cities, if you'll go to the cities, and go to their website, they're going to have a map that's going to show you what they call the ETJ, which is is what we're talking about right now. If you hear the acronym ETJ anytime, then you need to go to the city. You need to look at that map and you need to see if that property sits in that ETJ. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. That doesn't mean that they're annexed today. It just means they will be. Yeah. And be sure your people understand that.
And there's difficulties with that. I mean, I was in public office in the county, and the difficulties run into the fact that the county and the city have much different zoning rights, much different requirements of street lighting, all these things. So the city, though they may want to take on the additional taxes that they're going to receive, there's going to be a huge burden to bring that area up to the code that's required from the city themselves, of making sure the lighting is proper, making sure the streets are proper, making sure everybody has water and sewage. So there's a lot of times where they want to do it, but they're not going to, just because they don't want to take on that additional burden, even though they're going to get the additional tax revenue. So be very careful, but this is warning the buyer, hey, you're being warned. You may be be annexed by the city. The seller has done their due diligence by putting this by this paragraph being in this contract.
Absolutely.
Property located in a certified service area of a utility service provider. Notice required by subsection 13.257 of the Water Code. Real property described in paragraph 2 that you are about to purchase may be located in a certified water or sewer service area, which is authorized by law to provide water service, sewer service to the properties in the certified area. If your property is located in a certified area, there may be special costs or charges that you will be required to pay before you can receive water or sewer service. There may be a period required to construct lines or other facilities necessary to provide water or sewer service to your property. You're advised to determine if the property is in a certified area and contact the utility service provider to determine the cost that you will be required to pay and the period, if any, that is required to provide water or sewer service to your property. Undersigned property hereby acknowledges receipt of the foregoing notice at or before the execution of a binding contract for the purchase of a property described in paragraph 2 or at closing of purchase of the real property. Again, the seller is giving all notices required that you may or may not have water, and you may have to pay to get water to your property. And this can be thousands and thousands of dollars. So you definitely need to make sure what's going on. When
in our single zip code of 76065, there's 5 water utility districts. 5.
Oh, absolutely.
One of them only services 120 houses.
Wow.
Yeah. And so if you don't know that, that's a problem, right? Yeah. And so if you don't understand that piece of the contract, guys, you need to spend some time, look at your area, make sure you know your market, make sure. We have the same problem when it comes to electricity. I have 2 co-ops in here, and then the rest is done through Encore, right? And so you got 2 co-ops that come through there. If you buy in that co-op, you're locked into that, guys. I mean, that's the way it works. You don't get to make those choices that, where everybody says, oh yeah, you can go out and find your own electricity. Not in that co-op, you can't. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing is you need to know what restrictions you have in that regard. What will they allow? What will they not allow? It's kind of like the power grids. There's a huge issue right now, and I know Kent felt it more than we did because we're not on the Texas power grid. But if the power grid goes out, everyone's going to be in trouble. But you don't get to pick your power grid, which one you want to be on and where you want to be. So this is some huge information of making sure you understand. And this is more often going to be in the outlying areas than within the city limits, but not always. Sometimes within city limits, they have their own water districts. So you don't just the age old. If you assume, they get an ass out of you and me. Never assume. Do your due diligence and be the professional in the situation, because these things can come and get you at any time. Public improvement districts. Now, these can happen anywhere in any part of the area. If the property is in a public improvement district, subsection 5.014 of the property code requires seller to notify buyer as follows. As a purchaser of this parcel of real property, you are obligated to pay an assessment to a municipality or county for an improvement project undertaken by a public improvement district under Chapter 372 of the local government code. The assessment may be duly annually or in periodic installments. More information concerning the amount of the assessment and the due dates of that assessment may be obtained from the municipality or county levying the assessment. The amount of the assessments is subject to change. Failure to pay the assessments could result in a lien on and foreclosure of your property. Now, this is going to be done usually for special projects that a county or a city are doing. Building a special road that only helps a few people, building a bridge, building up an industrial park, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. They can pick certain areas that will be charged in assessment fees. Now, a lot of times those assessment fees will be in the form of tax freezes, and any additional taxes will go towards the assessment, but not always the case. So you need to make sure, if you are in a public improvement district, what is owed when and why, because if someone finds out later they're magically being taxed at an additional rate that nobody else isn't, they could get frustrated. And
when you're going through as a buyer's agent, if you see the acronym MUD, you better be figuring out what that means.
Yes.
Because there's somewhere somebody's going to get charged way more money than they thought they were going to get charged.
I will accept that.
Sorry.
Transfer fees are kind of a different animal, guys. Transfer fees, luckily, have been deemed, I don't want to say unconstitutional, but unconstitutional by the state of Texas. So they can no longer be created, but any transfer fees that were created prior to the law going into effect. And I want to say this law went into effect about 10 years ago. Does that sound right, Kent?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Any transfer fees that were put into effect prior to this still apply. The way a transfer fee is freaking crazy. So the way it works is someone pretty much set up a transfer fee system where they said, anytime anyone sells this piece of land, they have to pay me money, period. Right. And it runs with the land. So I sell the land six more times, I get a fee for it being sold because I put this transfer fee into play. So I'll show it to you right now. If the property is subject to a private transfer fee obligation, subsection 5.205 of the property code requires seller to notify buyer as follows. Private transfer fee obligation may be governed by the Chapter 5 of the subchapter G of the Texas Property Code. They're warning people about them because there's nothing that's going to frustrate people more than getting a magical fee. Paying someone who had nothing to do with the transaction.
Andrew, what's crazy is that 8 and 9 are two things that I deal with on a daily basis.
I believe that.
Of things that are put in place years ago, they're there. We deal. I mean, we've got one little subdivision that the transfer fee is $6,000. Yeah, it's crazy. And then the gas, you're going to talk about that next, but the propane gas system service area is another freaking nightmare.
And we're only going to get through Chapter 6 today, guys. I know this one is kind of mind-numbing, but these are extremely important notices to make sure you understand. Right. And I know no one reads them. So if Kent and I get down, read them, and then break down what they actually mean, hopefully you'll have a good understanding of an idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah, the cool thing about this piece of it is, and I know I get a little geeky when it comes to the contract, but if I know all this and I've had the conversation with you, and it doesn't have to be an in-depth conversation, just a conversation that said this, and the transfer fees, you need to understand that. hey, propane gas is not a big deal here. You don't have a propane tank, but I've gone through that and I've talked about it. Then when I sit down and have conversation with them and I remind them of, now remember when we sat down, we talked about this a little bit. They go, oh yeah, but if you never said it, that's a problem.
Oh, definitely. Remember when we talked about goes a lot better than, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So paragraph 6E9 is talking about the propane gas system service area. Now, this is not a huge thing in El Paso, but Dallas area, you're going to see it a lot more. If the property is located in a propane gas system service area owned by a distribution system retailer, seller must give buyer written notice as required by subsection 141.010 of the Texas Utilities Code. An addendum containing the notice approved by TREC or required by the party should be used. Again, they're telling you flat out, there is an addendum for you in this. Go find the addendum and use it if you are in a propane system service area. Can you say you have to deal with this?
Andrew, if you see that tank sitting in the backyard, or you see somewhere where it's buried and you see that, you better figure it out because you don't know who owns it. It could be buried and still not be owned by the property owner.
What are you seeing with? Because I'm not going to lie, this is outside my wheelhouse. We don't see a lot of propane gas systems. What's the big hiccup with this? Are they leased? Is it?
Yeah, they're leased. So what they do is they lease the propane tanks, right? And then you transfer. The house goes up. We sell it. We move it. We transfer it, and nobody even tells the propane guy that happened, right? And then they show up, and you get a bill for $300 or $400 to fill your propane tank. And you never even asked anybody to fill it. Wow. And you're like, oh my goodness, where'd this come from? Right? I didn't hire anybody to do this. You don't have to. It's their system. They own it. They own the gas that's going into your house. And you better, you better understand that, right? Because I mean, what's the worst thing you do is comes up December, it's 15 degrees outside and your propane tank's empty. And the guy goes, well, you didn't pay me, so I ain't coming.
Oh,
so I mean, it seems minute, but it's huge in people's life. So you got to make sure that you understand that, and that's why when you're going through this, and that's why the contract is so important to understand that you read every piece of it, that you understand when you're talking to that buyer, that they get what they're fixing to get into, right? Because there's nothing worse than the buyer coming back and say, Andrew, you didn't tell me that.
Absolutely. And what shocked me when I got into the government world, and it's true in El Paso, I guarantee it's true. It's true everywhere, is how many people don't have the basic things that everyone else takes advantage of. There are thousands of homes in El Paso County that still don't have water. There's thousands of homes that still don't have sewage. Heat, all these things, being on a propane tank instead of having just thinking, but not even thinking about turning the heater on, turning the water on, turning the gas on. There are areas where if your water runs out, there's not much you can do about it. For us, it's not really a problem, but if you rent water and now magically, oh my gosh, the water truck didn't come, I can't take a shower. I can't brush my teeth. I can't do those things. And understand where you're at. If you're in an area that doesn't have, it's on a well or it's on something that trucks in water, you need to know that and warn your buyer of that situation.
Unfortunately, as real estate agents, so here's my biggest pet peeve with real estate agents, and I love them all. Don't ever misunderstand. I love them all. But, I don't know how many conversations I've sat down with them and go, well, Kent, I just love to show houses and I want, and so you got this Chip and Joanna Gaines thing going on, right? Right. Well, the reality of it is that's all well and good until we get down to the end. And we got to figure out how we're going to make sure these people can live every day for the rest of their life in this property we just asked them to buy, right? We can't be, we love the paint and it's got a cool barn door in it, right? That's all well and good till there's no water, there's no gas, there's no sewage, those are the things that count. And that's why understanding this contract and making sure that you go over it in detail with people, especially when there's a situation like, a propane problem or a water problem. and all that, that they understand what they're getting into. Because at the end of the day, you're the professional. You're the one that's supposed to be able to tell them what's happening.
Exactly. And understand what they're going to get into with everything. Understanding the difference between refrigerated air and swamp cooler. If they're from the East Coast and they've never heard of a swamp cooler before, and they buy a house and they're like, "This is miserable. You've sentenced me to a life of misery."
Yeah,
you've got to warn people about what they're walking into.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to do paragraph 10, and then we're going to switch over to Kent's side. Okay. Notice of water level fluctuations. Now, this is any time you're near a water system that has at least 5,000 acre feet. And let me read it real quick. If the property joins an impoundment of water, including a reservoir or lake, constructed and maintained under Chapter 11 Water Code that has a storage capacity of at least 5,000 acre feet at the impoundment's normal operating level, seller hereby notifies buyer the water level of the impoundment of water joining the property fluctuates for various reasons, including as a result an entity lawfully exercising its right to use the water stored in the impoundment or drought or flood conditions. So this is saying if you're near a lake or some water source that has a lot of water, you're warning people, guys, it can go up, it can go down. You can lose water or you can have too much water and it starts to flood. So it's just another notice that is required by the state, by the water code. And it's something that is being given to the buyer saying, you're notified. This doesn't magically stay at this level 100% of the time. It can fluctuate up or down depending on droughts or needs of the water that is there. So also extremely important. There's only one area in El Paso that I can think of this might even affect. Dallas, Dallas area, I'm assuming there's much, much more.
Oh, tons.
Yeah. So, but I mean, how often does this become an issue for you guys, Kent, up there?
So I would say that, so if you take and you go out and you look at the Red River. So the Red River is pretty much the boundary between Texas and Oklahoma, right? And that thing changes all the time. And so, you might have 20 acres on one side of it, one year, and we have a huge flood season, and that 20 acres may move to the other side of the river the next year. And guess what? You don't own it anymore. Yeah. And those things, those things happen on a regular basis. And so, and then lakes are the worst. Most of our lakes around here are controlled by, they're controlled and they don't, you can't build up to them. So they're conservative lakes, but the ones that aren't, like Cedar Creek, it's supposed to be a constant level lake, but if the water source drops, there's no way to keep it constant level, And so, it's just the stuff you're going to deal with all the time, and it's craziness, man, but again, it's not a big deal as long as we have the conversation about it.
And like I said, we're required to give the notice.
Right.
By using the Texas Real Estate Commission contract, you're giving the notice. And that's the nice thing about using the forms that not are available to you that are required to be used. They're required to be used for a reason, because they're going to make sure all these notices that we've just gone over are in there. And if you use a magical other contract, besides the fact that you're breaking the Licensing Act, you could miss some of these and get in even more trouble. So make sure you're always using the forms that are promulgated and available for you to use for that, if no other reason, that one, of making sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and getting everything done.
And just don't write anything in there that you don't absolutely have to.
In fact,
if you do, it has to be a fact.
My recommendation, before you even think about writing something, contact your broker.
Yeah, I agree with that.
100%. Because the sad truth is, anything that's handwritten will supersede anything that else is on there. So you could change the contract drastically with a handwritten note, not meaning to, and you can get into serious trouble for doing that.
Yeah, I had a contract came in one time, Andrew, and it had the word "please" in it.
Please.
Yeah, they wanted us to please, clean the house or something. Who puts the word "please" in a contract? Because we're like, yeah, no, we ain't doing that.
That's a request, not a.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a fact. That's absolutely right. It has to be a fact. So
absolutely. Cool, so, guys, I know we might numbed you a little bit with that. It's extremely important information, and that's why we broke it up into 2 days. Yeah. Just paragraph 6, which is 2 pages. But we're going to be going over some really important stuff next week, making sure you understand the difference between these things. But now we got the exciting stuff with Ken of how to make money and how to do stuff with it. So
yeah. So I'm going to finish with the last thing I'll say is, guys, just read read it a lot, read it as much as you can. You know, I keep a copy. I keep it in with me all the time. I'm always reading the contract, right? Because you know, if I understand that contract, then I'm the professional. You know, if I'm sitting with Andrew and we're gonna give him an offer on his house, I'm doing it upside down and backwards like this, right? That's how I'm going to present to him. I need to know what it says. If I have to turn it around to read it, I just lost confidence with Andrew. You know, I need to know what it says and I need to be able to explain it to him, right? You don't have to be like the smartest guy in the entire world. You just need to know when they say what's Tidewater, you need to be able to explain that, right? I mean, it's a simple deal. All right, guys. So, Andrew, that was rock star stuff. I get it. It's contracts, you know, but unfortunately, that's what we do for a living, you know. And so, you know, if you got to be good at it, you got to understand it, and that's just got to be a piece of it. And you know, so I hope you guys get that. All right, so let's talk about making a little money. All right, so what do we do? And how do we go out there? What are the simple things we can do to make a little money? All right. So I'm going to talk to you about the cheapest thing, one of the cheapest things you'll ever do. And that is this simple thing right here is a business card. All right. All right. So you take a business card. One of the goals you should have every day when you're out there is to be able to go out and hand 5 of these things out every day. All right. So you're going to run into people. You're going to be at soccer practice. You're going to be places. You're going to talk to them. You don't have to be pushy about it. Just go, oh yeah. So what do you do? Oh, you sell cars? Great. Well, I sell real estate. Here's my car. Right? I mean, it's one of the cheapest ways of advertisement you'll ever have, guys. And if you're not handing out 5 of these a day, then you're not really trying. Guys, you're running into those people, and it may even be people you know and think you know that they have your data. Give them a business card. All right. Just one more simple reminder that costs very little money that puts you in the mindset when they hear somebody say real estate, moving, having a baby, getting married, whatever they're doing that causes those life situations, right? You know, they're going to think about you. So be sure you've always got these with you, right? I mean, you need to always, I bought this specific phone case, you know, and it's, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big, you know, but I bought it specifically because it's got a place to keep my business cards in. You know, I'm not going to leave without my phone, and I'm always going to have business cards in. And I guarantee you, I'm going to give out 5 business cards every day. I have for the last 10 years. I'll do it for the rest of my life. You know, it's the cheapest thing you can ever do, right? And so what is it doing? It's putting that little seed in their mind that we're trying to get them to get. Because remember, all we're really trying to get the people that we know that are either in our database or people we encounter that we're dealing with on a daily basis. We're just trying to just capture just a tiny little piece of their mind. And when they hear the word real estate, we want them to think of you, right? And how do you do that? You do that by constantly being in front of them. Okay, so that's one thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do, and this is probably one of my favorite things in the world, which is probably going to be one of those things that's going to be the hardest for you to do. And I'm going to send this out to Andrew and Brian so we can post it at some point in time. But we're going to call it the Mayor Campaign. All right. And I learned this from a guy named Joe Nego, you know, so I'm not going to take credit for it because he's the mayor of Chicago. And he learned it. And so one of the things I'm going to do is as I meet somebody, let's say I just met Andrew, we're sitting at the soccer fields, you know, we're watching our kids run up and down the street, you know, and we're talking and we get to know each other a little bit. I'm going to say, hey, Andrew, you know, if you knew anybody that was going to list and sell real estate, or you had a friend or family member that was, do you have a real estate agent that you would refer them to? All I want is a yes or no. You know, if he says, no, I really don't. Great. I've got my little book here. If I was going to mail you something, where would I mail it? So now I got something to write it down in, right? All right. So what did I do? I just picked up another person that could be an advocate for me if I work it properly. right? But I want you to think about that dialogue. That dialogue is so simple. Hey, Andrew, if you had somebody that was going to list or sell real estate, or a friend or family member that would, do you have a real estate agent you refer them to?
If they say yes, do you say, good, I'm glad for you? Or how do you pull that
If
off?
they say yes, say, hey, great, that's awesome. If something ever goes wrong there, I'd love to be the next guy for you, right? I mean, I always just make it simple, because all I want to know is yes or no. If you say, oh yeah, my brother's a real estate agent, well, I'm not going to spend my money on you, right?
Can we go back to business cards for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think business cards, I think a lot of people, from what I can tell, you and I are similar in the fact that we want to sell real estate, so we keep the ugly mugs off the photo, off the card.
Yeah, it's not there.
What recommendations do you have? Because one of my biggest pet peeves is when people use a photo from 45 years ago.
Yeah. So
it was like, is your granddaughter here to meet? What are the do's and don'ts you recommend for business cards for people who are doing it?
So I want it to be simple. So first off, let's think about it. The only reason for me to hand you the business card is so that I can get your information into my book. Because what are the odds that when you meet somebody and they say, oh yeah, I'm interested in real estate 3 weeks from now, that you're going to find this business card in your pocket, or it ain't going to happen, right? Okay. So the concept of the business card is simple. I'm taking the business card to get to where I can ask you, if you had a friend or family member that's looking to buy or sell real estate, do you have somebody you refer them to, right? Because I want to get that into this book. Because when I get it in this book, I can now put that in my database. And I now have the opportunity to market to you for years because you've agreed to it, right? All right. So I'm not a big fan at all of photographs on cards, on signs. That's just me personally. If you come and ask me to sell the most valuable asset I own, which is my home, right? And I walk outside and the sign looks like you're trying to run for office and not trying to sell my house, I got a little problem with that. But I also understand that a real estate sign is, in today's society, is really probably just a stop sign. So when somebody's coming by, it's just so I know which house to stop at, right? So that, that I don't get too picky about, but I don't. I'm to this day, I've never put my picture on a business card ever.
I haven't either. A lot of that is mainly just because I look like this, which no one's gonna be like, oh my gosh, that guy's amazing, But
I get both sides of it, because you got to remember, there's people that, so what we're teaching right now is that we want to brand you as the agent. So that's really where we are. So I'm going to brand you as the agent. So I get the idea that you might want people to see what you look like, right? We know that's going to happen through social media. So I think you can overkill anything, and so you got to be really cautious about how much it is about me. When I'm asking, when you say, Kent, I'd like you to take my most valuable asset and put it on the market, and it needs to be about that client, not about you, right? And so you got to be careful with that, very careful with that, right?
Yeah, just sometimes, if people we're talking about business cards, it's a lot of people will spend the money on rounded edges and odd shapes and do all these things. It's like, guys,
so I will say this, is that you got to be very careful with what I call shiny objects, right? So everybody's trying to sell you something all the time. Okay. You're a real estate agent. There's marketing companies out there. They're trying to sell you something every minute of every day, right? Be careful chasing shiny objects. Okay. A rounded business card, an off-shaped business card, all that. If it won't fit in my wallet or in my phone, what good is it? They're just going to throw it away. It ain't going to happen. So do things that make sense, right? Don't. This is something I've always told people, is that if somebody calls in and says, hey, Andrew, I'm going to sell you leads, and you're like, great, and I have one question only. Can I pay you at closing? If you say anything other than yes, then we're done. I'm not going to pay you in advance for them. I'm not going to give you $250 a month for them. If you say, we'll do it at closing. Then me and your partners and I'm in. Right? Anything else I'm not doing, and I get other people do that. I'm not saying that the way I do things is the only way. It's the way I keep the money that I make in my pocket and not in somebody else's. And so I try to keep that a very simple thing. Now, I'm not saying don't buy leads. I'm just saying be very cautious when people start calling and saying, I'm going to sell you leads. Say, great, how many other people are you selling that same lead to, And so that's a good way to look at that. Now, now I want you to think about, how do we get people to really pay attention to us, and how do we get into their mind to where they remember us every time they hear the word real estate? Okay. So I learned this a long time ago, is that and we talked about this a little bit last week, but I found what I was looking for. So we're going to talk about it again this week. And that is birthday cards. Right. So here's my birthday card. Right. If you'll notice, it's a little man bush and a little woman bush with a tie on, and a little woman bush with pearls on. Right. Okay. So what did I do right there? I subliminally talked to you about Kent and Stacy Bush. Right. And then on the inside, it has a very simple saying: the Bushes would like to wish you a happy birthday.
That's awesome.
Okay. So what I did was I promoted us as their friends and the people that they're there. I didn't put a business card in there. I didn't put anything else in there. All I did was send them a card. Right. Now, what you got to remember is that, as I'm sending these cards out, and we talked about this last week, it was your birthday last week, right? Yeah.
My wife's.
Your wife's birthday. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So I knew somebody that. But you go back and say, okay, so how many handwritten personal birthday cards did you receive?
Two.
Okay. All right. From who?
Her grandmother and our church.
There you go. All right. So everybody that is in my database, and I have 1,600 plus people in my database, I send out over 1,600 birthday cards every year. Guess what? A massive amount of time, I'm the only person that sent them a birthday card. You know what these cost me? Nothing. I mean, they're 20 cents a piece when I buy them in that kind of bulk. Right? You know how powerful that is? You know why I can drive through Ellis County, northern Ellis County, and everybody knows who I am? Because I know them and I send them freaking birthday cards. Guys, I'm telling you, this is not hard, right? We always try to overthink everything we do. We're always looking for, what can I do today to sell a house tomorrow? It doesn't work like that, right? The way it works is we go out and we do the things it takes, and we go out and we take the people we know and love, and we take care of them and make sure that they get the opportunity to hear from us on a regular basis. So when they hear something, there's nobody they'd rather tell about than you, right? All right. So, that it's not an overnight situation. It's not something we're just going to jump up and win tomorrow, right? Can we farm a neighborhood? I love what Brian talked about last week about, farming versus fishing. That's a cool thing, So when I farm, I'm farming, right? I'm growing the neighborhood. I'm putting the seed in. I'm going to take, maybe I've been farming some neighborhoods for 5 years, right? But then when I fish, I throw a lure out there. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a lure. You throw that out there and you find their birthday and you're the only one that wrote them something like that, and you make it look like it's about them and not about you. That's the most critical thing you can figure out. If you don't figure out anything else, you got to come up with something that recognizes you, right? Okay. Without putting your business card in there and going, I want to sell a house. I want to make you go, I want to make you feel important. That's the goal with my birthday card. Right? Is to send it out and go, man, Kent, he's such a nice guy. Nobody else sent me a birthday card. Yeah. I mean, think about that. It's a simple thing, guys. And these are the things that separate us from. You can go find almost every person you've ever known birthday in Facebook. All you have to do is go in and pull. There's a system in there. You pull up, you hit birthday, and it shows you every birthday for every person that you know on Facebook. I mean, if you're not sending them birthday cards, shame on you, right? Because it's again, one of the cheapest things you'll ever do that will make you the most money you'll ever make. Guys, we don't have to do all this other craziness. We have to do the fundamentals. We have to make sure that we're doing the simple, basic things that make all the difference in the world, right? Right. So that's kind of, I'm getting off that soapbox. I'm done. Birthday cards, do them. If you're not doing them and you don't do them in the future, then, shame on you. Okay. All right. So I think Andrew bought in.
It's a valid point. We make those, it's one of those things where if you do it, you see such success and then you stop and you don't know why you stop. And the hard part, I think you'll agree, is just navigating the whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing yourself to sit down and do it is the hard part. I mean, the thought of, and for you've gotten to the point where it's like the thought of writing 1,600 birthday cards is so astronomically horrible. But when you break it up into, that's realistically about 4 a day. Yeah. That you're probably writing, or 5 a day, or even.
Remember, I'm just signing my name. I'm not writing anything in there. I'm just saying, "Happy birthday, Kent." Yeah, it ain't like I'm trying to write them, some speech that makes them, get some big motivational feature out of it. And I'll be honest with you, I have this theory that I live by that, I pay people to do $10 an hour work, so I actually pay somebody to do these for me. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, I do them. I hand them to them at the first of the month. They fill them out for me. It's anywhere between 10 and 20 in a month's time, and they fill them out. I pay them a little money to do it. It's a high school girl that's wonderful. Her handwriting's so much better than mine, just like that. So, pay the people to do the work, man. It's $10 an hour, Lead generation will make us wealthy. Everything else is worth $10 an hour. This is $10 an hour worth that will cause lead generation. Okay. Now, the other thing that I've done, and I got this from my dear friend Brian Buffini at one of his events, and it's a bucket list book. All right. So in my bucket list, there's all these things that I would really, really like to do. Right. And so one of the things is why am I willing to wake up on Monday morning and come in here and jump on my database and start really pounding it out and talking to people that are going to hang up on me? And why am I going to do that? Well, it's because I know why I get up and do it every day. Okay. And so this is a list of things that I'm going to check off. And the only way I can check them off is if I go and do the work. Right. So the why is everything. So why do you do it? One of the things that we want to do, and I actually wrote this prior to COVID, which we probably would have knocked this off by now if COVID wouldn't happen. But I want to do what they call a Rhone River cruise, which is a European river cruise down on the little flat boats that go down there, the long boats, and it goes through the wine country in Rome. But I look at that every day and go, okay, that's one of the things that is important to me and my family. So I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to go to work. And I'm going to get up in the morning. And that's the hardest thing for independent contractors, which is what most of us are, is to say, okay, it's simple to just wake up and go, I'll start about 10:30. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. We need to knock out the 40, 50 hours a week, just like everybody else, Now, we got some freedom in there. I get that, but I got to know why on Monday morning do I wake up. And so I've got this list. This is my bucket. And you don't have to have a book like mine. I mean, you just need to make a list and say, here's the things that I'm going to do over the next 1, 3 to 5, 10 years, right? And you need to write them down. And you need to put them somewhere that you work every day. And you need to look at them and go, that's why I get up and do this. I'm going to tell you right now, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I've churned a lot of cash through a lot of different things. Okay. I'm going to tell you, people don't do this for money. All right. Money's a byproduct of it, and it's a good thing, but they do it because I want to go on that river cruise. They do it because, I want to make sure that my family gets to travel around the country in a motorhome. They do it because they want to take their kids to Disneyland, right? That's why they get up and do it. They don't get up and do it so that they can pay the freaking electric company. Let's make that clear. They do that because that's a necessity. They get up and do the things that it takes to be successful because of the things that they want. But if you haven't written them down and you haven't created that list, you're never going to get the motivation it takes to walk out there and do this every day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, the way it's supposed to be done. You're not. You're always going to find an excuse. But if you know why you do it, the excuses go out the window. So I guess today, really what I want to talk about is just, find something that you love, find something that you want, find something that's so important to you that you're willing to do the simple fundamental things of picking up the phone and giving somebody a call, making sure you don't miss a birthday card, making sure that you send somebody a handwritten note and tell them that you love them and you love to do business with them. Make sure that you learn the mayor campaign to be able to say, hey, Andrew, if you had anybody that's looking to buy or sell real estate, or a friend or family member that was, do you have somebody that you would refer them to? I mean, how hard is that, right? I mean, that's a simple dialogue. It's a simple thing that you can learn to say, right? And people, guys, if you ask, they'll do it, right? Andrew, you've run for office before.
I have.
I'm going to tell you, I guarantee you, you have said almost the exact same thing I'm talking about right now to get elected for office. Now, whether you've ever said it to get a referral in the real estate business, I don't know. But what I do know is that dialogue.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing, learning, I think the hardest part is about anything is doing. Once you do it, it's easy. Once you realize that no one's going to shoot you or punch you in the face, or
they're not going to eat you.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you realize most people are like, hey, yeah, nice to meet you, man. Cool. People want a guy. People want the person that they can call. People want to feel important on a referral. And the important thing is making sure that they know that when they refer you, they're not going to be made to look stupid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's two things that and we'll get more into this next week, is kind of what I want to talk about is one, how to give a referral, and then how to receive a referral. And those are two different things. So what happens with us is most of our vendors out there, they work by referral, or plumbers or electricians, all those guys, they work but they don't know how to give one. Right. And so it's our responsibility as leaders to teach them how to do that. Right. And so next week's lesson is going to be about how do I give a referral, and what do I do when I follow? So let's say Andrew's an electrician, and I say, hey, Andrew, I need you to go see my friend Joe. He needs some help. We're trying to get his house ready to sell, and I give you that referral. Right. So I'm going to tell you, within 48 hours, I'm calling you again and going, what did you do with my referral? If you haven't touched base with that referral, guess what? I'm finding me a new electrician, because I need you to do and be the person that I told that guy you're going to be. Right. But I got to train you to do that because you're busy. Right. I mean, you're working your guts out. You're out there working, 12 hours a day, trying to get caught up on the den. I just couldn't get to it. Unacceptable when it comes to a referral business. Right. But if you know that and you understand it, you're at least going to drop that guy a text message and say, hey, can I call you? Right. And that's all I really need. I just need to know that you did it. Right. And if you give me a referral, I can promise you that referral will be working within 48 hours, period. It's not going to, there's no way of getting around it. Right. So those are the things that we have to understand. Right. And so we'll get into that really hard and heavy next week, because it's one of my favorite things in the whole world. But I just want to finish with one simple thing. Write the freaking birthday cards. Okay. Let's not make this hard. Right. Get everybody's birthday and send them a freaking birthday card. Okay. It doesn't have to be this one. I mean, just find, I don't care if it's just a birthday, it says happy birthday. Just send, and do not believe that sending them something on Facebook that says happy birthday takes the place of me taking time to write that card and put it in the mail. Okay. I've got my database set up that when Andrew's birthday pops up, it tells me 5 days before his birthday. I write the card 5 days. He gets it before his birthday, not after. It's a big key, guys. I love this stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've hit an hour. We want to make sure people can do their thing. But Kent, as always, thank you so much. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and you make me want to get up and stop being a lazy butt. So I appreciate that.
Hey, man. Yeah, we're having so much fun right now. You know, it's guys. You know, I don't know what you're doing out there, but you know, if you pay attention to what's going on over the next, 6 to 7 to 10 months, this stuff is fixing to just get nuts because we're in a crazy world right now and people are just starving for this stuff.
That's true. I mean, just any interaction, people are desperate. So be that interaction. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, man. See you next week.
All right.